I am so excited to speak to our guest today. She is a nurse practitioner that specializes in aesthetics all the way out of Dallas, Texas. Please help me to introduce Injector Sonya.
Hello.
Sonya, I'm so excited to speak to you today. I have so many questions to ask you. So let's jump right in.
Hi, my name is Jonathan McLean, and I'm the founder and CEO of McLean Aesthetics.
Welcome to the dark side.
Let's go. So Sonya, tell us, how did you get your start in aesthetics? How did you break into this industry?
Yeah, so I've always kind of been interested into it. It wasn't really my game plan when becoming a nurse practitioner. It actually kind of just fell into my lap. Someone mentioned, they're like, why haven't you ever thought about doing aesthetics? It's kind of during the height of COVID, and I was like, no, like right now, nothing is working. Like no jobs are like doing well. So like, anything really elective, it's just not something I wanted to dive into. But kind of like looked more into it. I gained more interest, and then I decided, okay. So I started to invest in some trainings. I went to, I can't remember how many countless trainings. I went to probably 5 or 6 days a month of trainings, like full day trainings, just really trying to invest in myself and in my time and my learning. It was really hard to become a beginner again. It's very humbling as someone who comes from, when you get really comfortable in your field. I was an ICU nurse, and I wouldn't say I was cocky, but I was very confident in my work and my job. And so having to be a learner again was hard, but really just investing the time and seeking out training, seeking out mentors, really just helped me jumpstart into the field. And so after doing that, I continued to train. And then once I felt comfortable enough, I opened up my small studio, and I still haven't stopped going to trainings. I really believe in bettering yourself and just to improve your patient outcomes, but also just for yourself and helping other injectors. And so that's kind of how I just got all into it.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting way. I definitely hear a lot of people start that way. Sticking your foot in, really seeing if it's for you, and then going full force.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, I wanted to speak from the point of you really transferring from the hospital and going into the aesthetic industry. I get so many nurses that are looking to kind of do the same thing. Can you touch on that? What's the big differences, and what's kind of that learning curve?
Yeah. So, you go from being in a hospital where it's your daily tasks are laid out. It's very it's either, step by step, or, things usually somewhat go to plan. ICU, not as much, but, and pretty much all your actions are dictated by someone else. And so everything you do is placed out by an order. And more in aesthetics, it's more autonomous, whether you're a nurse who works underneath a provider, but still you are still carrying out these procedures on your own. And it's more of a craft as well. And so the transition is not just learning about aesthetics, learning about the facial anatomy, things like that. It's like improving your craft and improving how you inject and, your skills. And so the biggest, hardest thing was, understanding just how different the face is from the rest of the body. That was really hard for me to grasp, was the face muscles, the arteries, your safe zones, and just really focusing on those. But the biggest thing is also your time. You have so much more time. The flexibility of time, your social life is great. When I worked in the hospital, I called it the post 3-day hangover. So you would work for 3 days in a row, so 12-hour shifts. That day after, when you actually had off and you actually had time to do things, you just never wanted to do anything because you were so tired. I just would sleep all day. My friends were like, let's go do something. I'm like, nope, out of commission. So it's nice to be able to go home at a decent hour and still function as a basic human being. But it's been a good transition.
Yeah, for sure. I can imagine that. I feel like that's why most people get into this industry. One of the reasons I feel like most people get into this industry, just because they want to have a work-life balance. They want to have time outside of work where they can actually have a balance.
Yeah,
for sure. Tell us, is employee burnout real in this industry then? Does that even happen?
I wouldn't say I was necessarily burnt out. I weirdly enough love bedside to the point that I cried on my last day. But every person is different, and it really just depends on what unit you work at. You really break it down to the hospital, the unit, and your coworkers. If all of those systems aren't really working great for you, then it can make your time really miserable. For me, fortunately, I had a good experience where the burnout wasn't as terrible. I had those days where I was just like, oh my gosh, why am I still doing this? But, you know, your PTO is great as being a nurse. And so taking that time off really did help relieve any of the burnout symptoms I may have felt. But it is real for a lot of people, though.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Is PTO real in the aesthetic industry? Do you get PTO now? And is burnout kind of real in this industry also?
So since I own my own thing, I can take PTO when needed. I try not to, though, because obviously, like, when it's your business, you want to be available. And weirdly enough, being a business owner, I feel like I work a little bit more than my other friends that are injectors. I think it's because I make myself more available. Like, I'm constantly on phone calls, taking texts, I'm reaching out to clients, and I do my own marketing. And so my PTO is limited because I just try to really invest all of my time into it. And what was the second part of your question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and do you experience employee burnout?
Not as much. There are times where it's like a long day and I get home and I'm like, oof, and you kind of you're always going to have those clients that are a little more difficult than the others. And that's in any field that you work in. And so there's going to be always those days where you're kind of a little more tired than the others, but I haven't really felt burnt out yet.
Okay, no, for sure, for sure. Now let's talk about the Dallas, Texas area. Now I used to live in Houston, Texas myself, and I love Texas a lot. But what are people asking for in the Texas area as far as aesthetic procedures are concerned?
So I try to push full facial stuff, but a lot of girls, you know, you have the young girls that live here. It is a younger city. It's almost why I moved here when I came out of college, is because I wanted to be into a young city where a lot of young professionals are. And so a lot of those younger crowds, what they want lips. They want lips. So that's probably my biggest thing. And then from that, I take the opportunity to like educate them on other parts of the face that we can treat to really do some facial balancing. But everyone comes in asking for lips. That's the first thing they come in for.
Is there one celebrity that everybody brings a photo of and say, hey, I want my lips to look like this?
Actually, no. People bring Snapchat filters with themselves.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a lot of education being like, okay, this is a filter. Looks great. Love the picture. You look beautiful in it, but it's not real life. And so you have to set a lot of realistic expectations as people come in, and you have to tell them, you know, it's not real life, and you have to, there's limits to how much we can do with filler. It does have really great transformations, but we still have our limits, safety wise and just anatomically wise.
Do you have to turn down patients like, okay, I don't think they're getting what I'm telling them, and I don't want to move forward knowing that they're not?
Yeah, it's hard because especially as a business owner, you think about, okay, this is my paycheck, but also you have to think about, okay, this is your work, this is your craft. If you're injecting someone who doesn't quite understand the word no, for example, like if they don't need any more, if they don't need the treatment that they think that they need, then it's usually not best for you to go forth with them. And like understanding those fine lines really has been a big changing factor in growing my business. People either respect you for it or they get upset and they'll go find someone else who will inject them. But just protecting yourself pretty much.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. What's the biggest challenges being a business owner?
Ooh, time. I feel like I don't have enough time. I'm running around like crazy. The biggest challenge has really been just like navigating. When I started out at the very beginning, it was more navigating how to get clients and client retention. I learned that just being genuinely me, being honest, being upfront, not really having any like hidden things pop up or things like that had really helped me along with my client retention, but also just the managing the time of like reaching out to clients. I do my own marketing, I manage my own social media, and then just trying to balance that with injecting. You know, people constantly call all day and I have to like respectfully decline their calls and say, hey, I'm with another client, because it is just me. I haven't expanded in the works of like thinking of trying to do that, but still just me. So that's been the hardest part. It's just being like a one-woman show is what I always say. But navigating the business world was a change coming from nursing. So I'm glad to have mentors and people that have helped me along the way.
Okay, nice, nice. How did you find a great mentor? I know so many people are looking for great mentors, especially newer in this industry. How did you find yours?
So I did an aesthetic training program, and it's called NeoWell Aesthetics Training. And they are the ones that offer like the monthly trainings with, obviously with the injectables and things like that. But they also offered like business classes and things like that. And so they had people that would come and like speak, and they were great to reach out to when I had any questions about things. They really helped guide the business aspect of it. And then mentors, the different injector trainers that they would bring in, a lot of them are very, community over competition, and they would happily give out like their Instagram or their phone number to be able to reach out for them for any problems. And there's still people that I reach out to like, hey, I have a question about this. And they're still just so readily available no matter how far along I have been. So it's been a great thing to have.
What does community over competition mean to you?
Well, so, like any other thing, like any other service that is offered, there's going to be competition is what people think in their heads, but I try to think of it as the more that we help each other out in the industry, the more that it benefits us, because there's going to be things that we don't know that someone else may know, and they can help you out with that. But if you just try to build up your walls and think that it's only just you and that only you should be getting business, then it's just no way to succeed. It just truly isn't. You should be helping others build up to help yourself grow.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, I see your social media and it's building up. Every time I look at it, it's growing more and more. What are the tips to building a great social media?
So my biggest thing is I had to find myself. I had to find like what I wanted to portray. And so I went through different styles and things like that, just things that I thought looked good, but they just weren't really my aesthetic. And so funny enough, I'm wearing pink, but I'm actually not like a pink girl. I'm not at all. I like neutrals. Like my whole room is black and white. Like I am just a very plain Jane girl. And I kind of realized that those are the things that I needed to just kind of like focus on and just be genuinely me, find a style that I like. And then I just kind of growing my social media and things like that. I focused on things that did well. I looked at a lot of analytics. I looked at, what performed well, what didn't. And so it was a lot of self-learning, but yeah.
Okay, how much ideally are you? How much time ideally are you spending on social media each week?
So during the day, in the morning, I wake up around 5:30 in the morning. I usually start going through things, making sure everything's going well. If I have leads, I make sure that I make a list of who I need to follow up with that day. I usually post in the morning because if not, I will not get to it for the rest of the day. And I usually do all that in the morning before I go to the gym or do anything else. And then for the rest of the day, I stay off of it. I'll answer messages and things like that. And then once I go home, I try to make content. So I would say, I did the math, probably around 30 or so hours a week.
Wow, that's a full-time job, but you see the results from it.
Yeah, it's the thing is I could outsource it. I could. But then I feel like I would lose that genuinely me part that I have worked so hard to put into. So that's why I focus a lot of time on it and making sure that it does well.
Wow, that's amazing. Is Instagram the biggest social media site for you, or are there other platforms that yield good results?
Instagram has been the best resulting for me so far. And I think it's because maybe it's just because of the lip filler. It's because of those younger clients are on Instagram. I haven't really figured that one out yet, but I think it's kind of what I've come to a determination of. It's because the Instagram performs so well. It's because it's the younger girls that are on it.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure. Now, and it's important. I would also like to say real quick, it's important to know your audience. Like you just said, your clientele is young, which you've pointed out numerous times, which is amazing because you want to target to younger people, which is going to help you to bring more clients to the door. So what you're doing is amazing. So I just wanted to point that out for sure. So speaking of conferences and training, what are some conferences and training that you could suggest for the audience?
Yeah, and so obviously I have to speak highly of NeoWell because where I did my training, but they bring in different injectors every month. And so it's really beneficial, and it has been beneficial for the past year for me because I continue to go, even if there's things that I've already done or I still do, I like to go and watch because every injector does things a little differently. So learning their style, learning their craft, because I like to harp on like this is your artistic skill. So being able to improve that in any way that you can is just really beneficial. And there's also another one called NLI. I think they offer more like short-term courses, like a weekend course. But I think that packaging those and doing multiple of those is more beneficial than just doing a weekend course. For conferences, I had some time to think, but I forgot about the names. But there was one that I wanted to go to that was in Dallas. It was the aesthetic record one. It's the charting system I use. They brought in a bunch of different injectors. They did a lot of live demos. There's multiple around the country that I like to go to, but I'm more interested in going to the ones that kind of are more directed towards like patient safety, things like that, like how to handle like medical emergencies and more honed on that versus like just injecting styles.
Gotcha. How do you feel about like online trainings?
What was that? Online?
Yeah, online trainings.
Yeah. So I have done a few with like Injector Bunny. She's a really popular injector. She hosts some online trainings where she kind of like talks through things. I also think those are beneficial. I watch a lot of Patreon, which is kind of like an educational platform. So there's multiple injectors on there that post educational content for injectors, whether it's, you know, live injection demos, or they just talk about like what products they use, why they use them. And I think that any way that you can learn is really beneficial. So I watch those videos in my time that I say that I spend on social media. That's part of my time. I watch injection videos and different things like that because they usually post daily, if not every other day. So I just think that any way that you can learn is really great.
Awesome. Is there any key opinion leaders that you would suggest for the audience to look up and follow?
Yeah, and so I mentioned Injector Bunny. There's also Rana Kennelly. She's in Chicago. She is hilarious. I say she's my spirit animal. I've never met the woman, but I love her. I really want to go to Chicago to train with her team. There's Julie. She's another really well-known injector. She does a lot of things on safety, which I like. And then just in our area, I mean, I speak on her a lot, but her name is Sonya Reyes. She's one of my mentors. She's the most amazing human being, but she's a wonderful injector, and she's a good one to follow too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sonya, for sitting down with me, speaking more about the aesthetic industry. Tell everybody where they can find you and what you got planned next.
Well, I will still be in Dallas, hopefully wanting to expand within the next year, but yeah, that's kind of the plan, is just to continue to grow. I've just been really grateful that everything's worked out the way that I wanted to. But yeah.
And where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me on Instagram at Syringes by Sonya. That's my personal, and then our business Instagram is Lisse Aesthetics.
Awesome. Until next time, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.